Students, what's the most creative excuse you've heard for not doing homework? I was in sophomore English class when our teacher asked why Tommy didn't have his essay. Tommy stood up seriously and said, "Mrs. Johnson, I need to tell you something that happened last night." The whole class got quiet because he seemed genuinely upset. He said his family had ordered Chinese takeout, and when they opened his fortune cookie, it was completely empty. No fortune, no little piece of paper, nothing. He said he'd never seen an empty fortune cookie in his whole life. He told us he interpreted this as a sign that his future was uncertain, and he couldn't possibly write an essay about his career goals, when the universe was clearly telling him he had no fortune ahead of him. Mrs. Johnson just stared at him for 10 seconds. She asked if he was seriously using an empty fortune cookie as an excuse for not doing homework. Tommy nodded and said he felt it would be disrespectful to the universe to ignore such an obvious sign. He even pulled the empty cookie shell out of his backpack as evidence. Some kids started laughing, but Tommy remained completely serious. Mrs. Johnson asked what happened to his family's other fortune cookies, and Tommy said they all had normal fortunes, which proved the empty one was specifically meant for him. She said that was the most creative excuse she'd heard in 20 years of teaching, but he still needed to turn in his essay. Tommy said he understood, but asked if he could write about the fortune cookie experience instead, since it had become a defining moment in his life. Mrs. Johnson actually said yes, and gave him until the next day to write about how an empty fortune cookie changed his perspective on fate and planning. He turned in a 5-page essay about superstition and free will that was apparently the best thing he'd written all year. Sometimes the most ridiculous excuses lead to the most authentic assignments.